Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Beyond the Wire podcast. I am your host, Tim Keller. Along with me, as he always is the fantastic Super Bengals fan, Mr. Matt Disher. How have you been, buddy?
You can't call me a Super Bengals fan. I just am just now. You can call me a fair weather fan, and I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to take that title. But all along, I got a couple of Bengals jerseys up there. I've been to the games. I've been a fan all along. I haven't been one of these diehard fans. And here's the reason why. I've had to explain this to a few people. Think of it as like any other business investment. If you continue to buy the gear and the swag and all the stuff year over year, you spend all your money, you spend all your time doing it, but your loss to win ratio is
your ROI on that investment is terrible. Yeah.
In any other circumstance, you're not spending any money or time doing any of those things because your ROI is terrible. And so that's the way I have become cynical. And I think that there have been some changes made to the Bengals organization, the way that they're doing things, the way that they're acquiring players, the way that they're building the team that are long overdue.
Yes.
And now that they're willing to do those things, this has been my criticism all along. Like, call me a fair weather fan all you want, but if you're one of these 30-year diehard fans, who are you diehard for? Is it for Mike Brown, the owner? Like, who is it that you're diehard? Because the team 5 years ago is not the same team that you have right now. It's that the players have changed. It's just the jersey and the name is the same. It's the same city. So I know that I have family members who are diehard, and they would punch me in the back of the head for saying any of this. But again, of course there are fair weather fans. You've got these Facebook groups that have erupted with 20,000 new members in the last week.
Yeah.
And it's rightfully so. People are excited about this. This is the first time in 31 years that we've been here.
I will say that going into the old NFL playoffs, my Philadelphia Eagles had made, the cut, but I was realistic about it. I was rooting for two teams. I was rooting for the Buffalo Bills, who put up a fantastic game against the Kansas City Chiefs, a game for the ages. But I was also rooting for this fun little upstart of a team out there in the Midwest called the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of young players that I really like. And I was just, man, I hope they can get past the Raiders and move on. They've been so long since they've even won a playoff game. They won week one. I was like, well, now they have to go play the top seed down in Tennessee. Hopefully they have a good showing. Came out and won the game. Last second kick, 52-yard field goal from a rookie kicker, Evan McPherson. I mean, and supposedly the quote is he's passing the quarterback as the kicker's coming on the field and the quarterback's leaving the field. He says to the quarterback, Joe Burrow, looks like we're going to the AFC Championship. Goes out there and nails that 52-yard field goal.
Nails it.
Sending the Bengals to the AFC Championship game.
Woo. Go back and watch the video of the kick. Before the ball is even halfway there, he turns around and throws his hands up.
He got his hands up. He's
not even looking at the ball.
Yeah.
He's just like, got it. It's not even halfway there. He knew by the trajectory. He's like, it's going in. And man, it's really exciting to see. It's exciting to see. And there's a lot of, you'd think that Cincinnati won the Super Bowl already. Like where people are just exploding with happiness. Good. And here's the problem. I have to coach some basketball games this weekend at the same time that our next game is with the Chiefs. And we have been kind of hoping and praying that the hosting team will just forfeit the game or cancel it or reschedule it. And we're still midway through the week. Still could happen. But, it's like the whole city should just shut down that day. We shouldn't be doing anything. We shouldn't be doing anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But this is exciting. It's long overdue. We've squeaked by, although I think that arguably, if you look at any of these playoffs games so far, a lot of these wins have squeaked by.
Yeah,
absolutely. It comes down to a field goal, it comes down to a kick and a few seconds.
And I love that rookie kicker you got. So if the next one comes down to a kick, I like your guys' chances.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say we broke the record for sacks to win One of those playoffs games too. So
Burrow took 9
times.
Sacks, and still won a game, which is a
Donovan
crazy
McNabb,
stat.
I think, was at 8 sacks and still won one of those games. So we're holding records here. I don't know if they're good records, but they're records no less.
It gives you you're finding very good success with a very glaring weakness that needs to be filled. And we need to go bolster that offensive line, obviously. And just imagine how much better the team can be. One of my favorite writers of all time, Chris Wessling, is a Cincinnati native. Sadly, he passed away last year from cancer, second bout of cancer. But he, much like you, Matt, had his entire childhood, teen years, early adulthood, had given so much emotion and financial support to this team with jerseys and ticket sales and, concessions and all those things. And he finally had enough and created a dossier of why he was. I can no longer possibly be a Bengals fan. I don't care that I was born there. These are all the reasons why, and news clippings and, blunders in the draft and trading players away that go, elsewhere and just turn into all-stars.
Right.
I would have liked to have seen how he would handle this. I think that part of him definitely would have softened a little bit. I know he really did like the quarterback Joe Burrow before Chris passed away. So I think with Joe Burrow and some of these other pieces that maybe Chris Wessling would have said, darn it, I'm following him. Let's go, boys. But who knows?
Well, again, the hard part has been for years, it was mismanagement of resources. That's what it was. It wasn't because it wasn't necessarily because of coaching. People would blame Marvin Lewis or, whatever. They would blame, I can't believe
great coach.
Right. You had some of the right players. We didn't do the right things from a management perspective. We didn't acquire the right players at the right time. We weren't doing the right things to get the right people on the field. And that is where I say, like, hey, I've been a fan all along. Have I been fanatically buying a new jersey every year? No. And I'm not going to until they start fielding good, solid teams. And it's not like they have to go to the playoffs every year either, or not that they have to win the playoffs every year. It's just that we have to be able to go to the games and be like, let's get something out of this. Let's not make bonehead plays and just lose it all the time.
Who day indeed, Jason. Who day indeed.
Indeed. Yeah. Jason's from the Cincinnati area here as well. So this is, I made a video. It's floating around YouTube and Facebook, and it's a video of reactions of people that I took off of Facebook, like public videos that people put up of their reaction to that field goal, where Evan McPherson won the game. And I made one myself. I was in the room. I turned the camera on and recorded. There were, 10 or 15 of us in the same room. We're just jumping off the walls. And one of my friends jumps into the arms of one of my other friends. And it's pretty funny. But I took 5 or 6 different videos and spliced them all together and made sort of almost like a movie trailer out of it. Okay. So it's pretty cool.
Well, as a long suffering Eagles fan, we had our little playoff run a few years back, back in 2018 with our backup quarterback, and every week we'd advance. I'm like, there's not a chance we're going to beat this team, and there's not a chance we're going to beat that team, and we just kept winning. And it's the cynical Philly fan in me. They won the Super Bowl, and there's a few photos out there, but I'm glad there's not a video because that was rough for me. I had to go outside for a minute and collect myself. But hopefully. The great fans of the Cincinnati Bengals get that opportunity. Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Give me a prediction. What are you saying? Kansas City, Cincinnati? What are we looking at here?
Listen, we beat Kansas City already. And again, we just barely squeaked by. I listened to that game on the radio. It was when we were driving back from Florida after our flights got canceled. So I got to catch it. And arguably in our win for that game, it came down to seconds, and it came down to a couple of penalties that the Chiefs had that gave us some yards, and we got some do-overs. It's gonna be a close game, and the Chiefs are a good team. They've been here before. The Bengals have not been here. Right now, I will say this: that you got a bunch of young guys, a bunch of young talent on the Bengals who have been quoted to say things like, we don't care about the legacy of the Bengals. We don't care about who's been here before, who's not been here before. We're ready to win this all. So I think at any rate, it'll be a good team. The long answer for a short question is that we weren't expected to be here for the next 2 or 3 years. We weren't expected to be this well off of a team for another few years. And we're here, effectively on Joe Burrow's year 2, even though he was out last season for, an injury. I think we have a good shot as long as we got that O-line. As long as Joe Burrow's not back there getting killed and he doesn't get hurt, I think we've got a shot. I think that a lot of these games have come down to, you've seen it. A lot of the wins have come down to kicks.
Yeah.
And Evan McPherson is the real deal. So
he 100% get. Wishing the Bengals and all their fans luck. Absolutely. So let's actually get into some military talk here. There we go. A Browns fan. He's just happy an Ohio team's doing well. I'll say that about the Browns. I thought going into this year that we might have 2 Ohio teams doing really, really well, and this didn't work out so much for the Cleveland fans. But
Yep.
they're not too far off themselves. They
Next
get
time.
a couple more pieces in there.
Yep.
So yeah, good for Ohio.
Yeah.
Just, as long as it's not Ohio State, I'll say it. Come at me.
I mean, my wife's a Nebraska fan. We're not talking Ohio State in my house.
There you go. Yeah, so let's get into some military news. The first article we have pulled up today, obviously it's beyond, just military.com and Military Times. It's now all over NBC and CNN and all those places. But Russia continues to put pressure on that Ukraine border. A article on military.com has the headline, Russia's Vietnam, why an invasion of Ukraine will be a disaster for Putin. Now, I know that, our policymakers and our president has said there will be sanctions against Putin. I would imagine that hey, let's go Penn State. Anyways, let's talk about some military stuff.
This is going to be going to be lingering. There's going to be comments in here about your anti-Ohio State
shots.
Right.
Sorry. Our policymakers have said there will be sanctions against Putin. Obviously, NATO would also put sanctions. Some European countries, I think, would jump in on those as well. But Matt, how do you see this being like a Vietnam for Russia?
I mean, think about this. This is something that Russia and the United States have both experienced this. Like, call it a quagmire. I don't know if that's the right word to use. That's the word they use when you get bogged down in combat, sustained combat for a long time. But Russia fought and lost in Afghanistan many, many years ago. And it was what you would call a modernized military with tanks and aircraft and cutting edge technology back then, versus effectively farmers with Stinger missiles, RPGs, and rifles. And granted, the West was supplying some of those weapons to those farmers in Afghanistan, but Russia experienced this. Afghanistan was called the graveyard of empires. The United States was stuck there for 20 years. Granted, we didn't have probably the same sheer number of casualties, I think, that the Russians experienced there. But, look at this. The article it could be Russia's Vietnam. The reference there is that the United States went into Vietnam in the late 50s and on into the 70s to fight communism. That was the headline of the conflict, and then got stuck fighting the entire population of that country. So during the day, you're fighting alongside of somebody who is on your side, and it's the South versus the North. But then at night, you might be fighting against that person. Mm-hmm. I think that this is you look at this in modern conflict. The Nazis experienced this in taking over Europe. We've experienced it in Afghanistan and Iraq through insurgencies. Russia has experienced it in Afghanistan. When you try to occupy a country that doesn't want to be occupied, and especially a country like the Ukraine, where like the entire citizenry is now training to fight. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like if you showed up on America's doorstep and said, all right, we're going to take over Ohio and Pennsylvania. Guess what?
Yeah, right.
You're going to have 100,000 troops versus 10 million armed people. Now, granted, the arguments might say, well, you don't have aircraft and advanced weaponry and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. You've got 7% of the U.S. population are veterans. Let's call it 1% of those people know how to operate those different equipment, the aircraft and the tanks and stuff like that. You don't have to evade aircraft and tanks to win battle. You have to drive troops. Troops can't occupy space with just driving a tank down the street. You're going to have the entire citizenry fighting you. And that citizenry is going to be armed with rockets. And they're going to be armed with, one of the articles that I think we have pulled up, Tim, at some point in time, is that Javelin missiles are inside of the Ukraine. Javelin missiles are awesome against armor. Mm-hmm. You could drive all the tanks you want in there. If you've got 100 guys on the ground with Javelin missiles, you're done. That's it. That's just how it goes. So arm the citizens, give them all weapons and ammunition, and this thing drags out forever. Some people have said about the Ukraine that Russia wants it for a number of reasons, to include, its strong economy and natural resources. The problem is that if Russia needs that to sustain itself, if you come into a place and try to occupy it to take over its natural resources because you've perhaps mismanaged your own, or you've mismanaged your own economy, what do you think happens when you occupy that new space? You're probably going to mismanage it as well.
Yeah.
Right. There's an argument about, not to bring politics into it. There's an argument right now in the United States, people fleeing some of these big cities that have these harsh COVID lockdowns and harsh protocols and things like that. And these people are leaving to go to more free areas. And some people are arguing with them on social media, like, please don't come to my neighborhood and then vote for the things that made you leave your own neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The same logic is here. If you've mismanaged your own economy, or you don't want your neighbor next to you joining NATO, which they're saying is not really what's going on here, or you want their natural resources so that you can have more money, if you mismanage those two, then your invasion is for naught. I know that there's a much more complex answer to all of this, but this is the Matt Disher podcast version.
Well, you're right. Going in, you mentioned, like, if somebody came in and tried to invade like Ohio and Pennsylvania,
right?
All those armed citizens, we know the lay of the land better than any outside force ever would. Especially all the hunters in both of those states, they know some of these backwoods and these mountains and these trails, better than anybody else out there on the planet. Being able to surprise invading troops would not be that big of a problem. And you mentioned one of these articles we are going to talk about later talks about some of the aid that is coming into Ukraine. You're not walking in and everybody's got like a big wooden stick or something either. They got real weaponry here, and it's going to be a real problem.
There's sure. Go on YouTube and type in Ukraine. There are, I think Vice News recently did, or in the last couple of years did, some stories where they followed around some militias that are inside of the Ukraine. And these are people that are not even working for the military. Maybe they're backed by the military, but their equipment is their own. And so they are armed with military equipment. There's tons of videos on these little militias that just pop up in communities. And these militias number in the hundreds of people, and they are becoming well-trained. A lot of them have formerly served in the military or are getting real training from, let's call it, allies. In any case like this, when you're talking about whether it's a proxy war or any real conflict, the whole existence of the United States Army Special Forces, as it was laid out initially, was to go in and train the indigenous population of places to fight battles. That's still part of their job today, although that job has expanded to other combat operations. But we probably have, or our allies have, people on the ground that are teaching these people tactics and operations and how to use weapons. Thusly, the Javelin missile, for example, is not one you just drop off on the street and say, hey, here, go pick this up and fire it at a tank. It's a very complex system. You have to have formal training on how to operate it. You simply cannot pick it up and just operate a Javelin missile. So we've got people on the ground. And I say we, I'm talking about probably the anti-Russian, pro-ally, pro-NATO group that are going to be in there training these people how to fight. But check it out on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff on there. You can go watch. You can see how these people are training and preparing for this conflict, and have been for a number of years. This isn't new, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's kind of talk about that next article. The Pentagon reveals info on $200 million in military aid to Ukraine, including more javelins. So on Tuesday, 79 tons of security assistance arrived in Kiev, including 300 javelins. This package includes the javelins we've spoken of, anti-armor systems, grenade launchers, munitions, and non-lethal equipment essentials. So body armor, packs, those sort of things being sent over there to Ukraine's frontline defenders, said Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Anton Smelarov. So yeah, that's again another big price tag. But let's talk about that. If Russia would invade this, they're going to get tied up there for a long time. It's going to cost them way more than $200 million,
right?
When it's all said and done. This article here is from Military Times. It actually kind of overlaps another article I did have pull up, but it's also talking about the 8,500 troops that were put on heightened alert earlier this week to possibly be sent over to Europe in case Russia continued to bolster their military stance there on the Ukraine border. It is estimated that there are currently 100,000 or more Russian troops on the Ukraine border. But yeah, a $200 million package. There's a lot of stuff there. You can see U.S. Embassy Kiev Twitter account has thrown some pictures out there. You got the commercial airliners there dropping off all of this gear and all of these supplies. It is something to see. That's for sure.
They're getting Stinger missiles, they're getting javelins, they're getting other anti-tank weapons. So the Russians have a rather large modernized tank force, and they have aircraft, of course. Again, take to YouTube, you'll see in Afghanistan 40 some odd years ago now, the Stinger missiles taking out Russian aircraft, farmers on farms, tribesmen in the mountains, knocking down advanced aircraft with Stinger missiles. Those things are pretty scary. It's also pretty scary that those are just being distributed around the world, that just like anybody can, have their hands on them. And as you know, what we saw from the withdrawal of Afghanistan, a lot of stuff gets left behind. Those things it's pretty terrifying. What happened in the Ukraine a number of years ago was that a passenger airliner was shot down by a Russian Buk missile. So it's an anti-aircraft missile. And that was a passenger airline. It was like a 737 or something like that, just being shot out of the sky full of people. Stuff is terrifying. And this is where we've talked about this before in conflict. Nobody wins this. If Russia invades Ukraine and it forces the United States and NATO to take an aggressive stance, people are going to die. Infrastructure will be destroyed. We will be involved in this. Our children will be involved in this potentially. If we talk about it being a quagmire, that means that we're all going to be involved in it for a number of years. It's terrifying. People get dragged into this. Children suffer. People starve to death. The thing is that it comes down to, it's all posturing. It's probably completely avoidable on both sides. But the 18, 19, 20-year-olds end up having to go fight the battle, and then the children suffer the most. The children in these countries in this conflict suffer the most because their lives are interrupted. We think we've been interrupted by COVID, and the doctors are telling our kids to get back to school. Imagine having a conflict. Imagine having a war in your backyard. There wouldn't be school.
Yeah.
In the Marine Corps, we ran humanitarian missions into certain war-torn places just to build schools back up so kids could go back to school. It was just a fundamental part of rebuilding. That's why this thing, has the potential to get ugly. But again, it's not new. This posturing has been going on for a number of years now, probably almost a decade, if I had to guess, if I had to go backwards in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Elsewhere, over in Dubai, the UAE, United Arab Emirates, recently there were some U.S. missile interceptions taking place over there. Excuse me. So there were some missile fires from a Yemen-based Arab group being shot into Abu Dhabi. I want to say it was earlier this week. I can't find the date here on the article I have pulled up, but it was fired at an air base over there where approximately 2,000 U.S. troops are currently stationed. So obviously, there's an air defense system in place to protect the air base. The air defense system worked, but this is something we just need to continue to keep an eye on. Matt, we mention all the time that you'd be kind of blown away to realize how many service members are deployed in all corners of the globe at any given time. And even a little segment of that group, 2,000 military members isn't a large chunk of military members. But we do our best to try to take care of them because we're not liked in all the corners of the globe as well. So I saw that article today. I didn't actually hear anything about it on the news coming into today. But when I read the article, I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, I think it was a relatively small offensive here. I think the notes that I see, January 24th, so just 2 days ago, Yemen's, the Houthi movement, aligned with Iran, launched a missile attack at the UAE on Monday that targeted a base hosting the U.S. military, but was thwarted by U.S.-built Patriot interceptors. So the Patriot missile, I think we saw the inception of these in Desert Storm back in the early 90s. Yeah. Patriot missile shoots other missiles out of the sky. It's a missile interceptor. So, of course, the U.S. troops, a handful of U.S. troops that are there, took cover in there. The Houthis are saying that they're battling a Saudi-led military coalition that includes the UAE, and said that they aim to punish the Gulf state, the UAE, for backing militias that are blocking their attempts to capture oil-producing regions in Yemen. So once again, fighting conflicts and firing at each other over resources. Nothing new, and I say it's nothing new because we've talked about this at length. United States involvement in Afghanistan and Iraq, or any conflict over the terms of history, it's almost always about resources and or money, whether it's tribal or governmental. It's almost always about resources. In this case, it's about more control of oil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what what kind of stinks here is, over the past 10, 15 years, UAE's done a very good job of attempting to become, the non-violent corner of the Middle East, and to be that place for individuals that like to travel. It become a destination for them. I see more and more, especially the younger crowd, traveling over there. I wish we had some of the pictures pulled up. I would say that over like the past 30 years, there's a picture of like Abu Dhabi in like the late 70s, and there's like 20 buildings and one road running through it. And now late 20 teens, and there's skyscrapers everywhere. It is very technologically sound infrastructure. It's a beautiful city. So they've done a great job of building themselves up, building an infrastructure, and becoming a tourist destination. And these sort of things won't help that. So
right.
I'm sure they're over there trying to figure out what they can do to keep these sort of things out of the news, keep these things from happening.
It's a beautiful place. While you're talking, I'm trying desperately to pull up some of those pictures and get them in a meaningful place here. But, you got to think about this area. It's in the middle of the desert, right? So it is a desert state. It's effectively, I'm going to pull this picture up here in a second, the very picture you're talking about, Tim. It is in the desert, and you'll see this from the image that I'm about to share. 1991 to 2017.
Oh, okay.
This was the one that I pulled up,
but
I'll pull that down here in a second. You can see, obviously, this is not an apples to apples comparison, but there is an actual apples to apples comparison. The picture on the left that you see just had a couple of high rise buildings, and then the picture on the right is something like 30 years later. Yeah, and they've got islands that they've built that look like plants and
palm
flowers.
trees. Yeah, they have that palm island. Yes.
Yep. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of a really cool operation. But it's oil money. It's a strong, resourceful country, and they have strong alliances with other allies, and that's how you get there. I don't know of any organizations that have had success getting what they want by firing missiles at each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully things continue to go down the right path over there in Abu Dhabi.
Here's one more. This is actually probably the one that we were thinking of here. Let me just pull this up. Sorry to delay us here, but
no, absolutely not.
And it's going to be irrelevant.
As you're doing that, I'm also looking at some of these, and it's a smattering of buildings, and
this is the same intersection from 1991 to 2014.
Yeah.
It's the same highway interchange, and you can see how drastically different.
They had this kind of all mapped out, planned ahead. That's
master planned
for
right.
What, looking at 1991, that's a lot of roadway for that few building,
right?
And
right.
They're like, we're just going to keep throwing money at this, and we're going to turn it into something amazing.
And now it's currently got the Burj Khalifa, which is that tall building there.
Yeah, the huge building
right here. It's the tallest building in the world. I think it's about to be surpassed by another building in Saudi Arabia that's either finishing now or just about finished. But this is the new epicenter of money in the world, and it's resources, it's oil.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that black gold.
Black gold.
Oh, so let's have some fun now, Matt. You sent me an article that says the Corps will stop punishing Marines who can't shave due to razor bumps. Your comment to this article to me was, let's kind of talk about how everything's a punishment in the Marine Corps.
Let's be honest.
It kind of is.
Right. That story has a photo of guys of recruits standing in the bathroom
they're holding up their issued looks like 3-blade razor and some Gillette shaving cream.
And there's a drill instructor standing there, probably shouting.
Which I will also say, looking at this photo, it looks like every sink has a bottle of like pump dispensable soft soap there, which I 100% don't remember. I think we had it was almost like a brick of soap that you could almost tear your skin off when it rubbed against you. But
I think you're right. It's a kinder, it's, as they always said, it's a kinder, gentler Marine Corps.
Yeah, absolutely. I served with a few folks that had this issue, based off the grooming standards of the Marine Corps. The haircuts were never so much of a problem for these individuals, but shaving, if the hair doesn't grow out straight, it causes crazy amounts of razor bumps. You could get like what they call it, the shaving chit, where you'd only have to shave once a week or something like that.
Yep.
But you're putting yourself in a weird spot where if you shave on a Monday, you venture to the other side of your military installation, and now you're around some gunnery sergeant. He's never seen you before, but he lays eyes on you and he sees that you have 3 or 4 days worth of facial hair on you, and he wants to, jump your bones. Oh, we just think we can do what we want, and you're like, no, sir. Like,
this is the funny thing about this is, like, when I saw that picture in that article, I could hear, if you're a Marine, you can hear if you've ever heard the saying, like, you can hear a photo. Mm-hmm. I could hear that photo, mm-hmm. and I can imagine what's happening in this picture. Now. Yeah, hold your razors up now. No, aye, sir. And here's what's happening. I'm gonna pull up that image again too, because
see that kid right up front. He's not holding his above his head. Oh, is that so heavy?
Right.
Above your head.
So this is, by the way, I don't recognize this head. I don't recognize this bathroom. Like, it doesn't look like anything that seems really narrow. I don't know where this is. And you're right. The hand soap doesn't make any sense. Maybe this is post-COVID. During COVID, they got to wash their hands a lot. I don't know. I guess. But so to your point, Tim,
you know what this is probably? It's got blue on the walls. You had that's probably 3rd Battalion.
Might be. They have new barracks.
1st Battalion was red, 2nd Battalion was yellow, and 3rd Battalion was blue, right?
3rd Battalion has new barracks.
Yeah.
So maybe these are new. Maybe there's a new barracks, which is why they don't look familiar to any of us old timers. I went back to Paris Island a couple of years ago, and they were tearing down one of the barracks buildings.
Okay.
So
I'm guessing that's 3rd Battalion there.
So it might be. This is the thing. This drill instructor's yelling at these guys, and to your point, Tim, the guy that doesn't shave for a day or 2 or 3 because he's got a no shave chit, as is
CHIT.
Yep. As is coming up in our chat here, you get a no shave chit, and you are able to not shave. A chit is a document, basically a document that says you can do certain things. It's like a permission slip. That's what it is. It's a hall pass.
Yeah. It's a Marine Corps hall pass.
And you carry it around. So if you go to, you need a BAS chit, you got to go to BAS, the battalion aid station, because you have a sore throat or you don't feel good, then you get a chit and you get to walk there. And that way, if anybody asks you why you're there or not, you can say, hey, this is where I am. But there are those people, and I ran into this when I was we were doing the Special Operations Training Group SOCX certifications. And this was, in short, before we deployed, I was with a boat company. I was attached to Fox Company 2-1 Raiders. And this was before the Raiders term was what the Raiders are now. This was the Special Operations Capable Infantry units that would deploy from the back of a ship on a Zodiac boats. We'd go sneak in the middle of the night and, come up on a beach somewhere at 2:00 in the morning, all dressed in black and paint. And we'd go sneak up to an objective and hit it and come back out. And we were doing the SOCX certification. So we were at the Delmar Boat Basin at Camp Pendleton, which is I guess it's the southern part of Camp Pendleton near Mainside.
Yeah.
And we walked into a chow hall. So when you're doing boat raids, by the way, when you're in the water, you don't blouse your boots. Your boots are left unbloused, so your pants aren't collecting water. We walked into this chow hall to go get some chow. We had about a half an hour. We were in a hurry. And I can't remember, but 30 of us walked in there, and there was this master sergeant in there who instantly stopped everybody. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why aren't your boots bloused? Why aren't this? Why aren't that? We've been out in the ocean for 2 days now. Some guys were getting a 5 o'clock shadow. This dude just lit us up. And that's what this story reminded me of. You can have a chit all you want. You can have all the permission that you want in the world. the joke that came to mind was, it says they're not going to punish anybody for this.
Yeah.
Not by paperwork, but guess what? Everything in the Marine Corps is a punishment.
Yeah.
Everything.
I would say that you probably went into the chow hall down by where the recruits train for the Crucible. If you were down there by the beach doing the landing, I think that's the closest chow hall on Pendleton. We were actually doing some light construction down there at one point, so that's the chow hall we were using.
Yeah.
And we just really had to watch our P's and Q's because we were fleet Marines that some of these recruits were seeing, and if we were out of place or something, uniforms jacked, you got your cover on inside. Those DIs who obviously aren't your DIs anymore, you're out of boot camp. They'd still jump on you just to make sure they were straightening you out in front of their guys.
Well, you got to think about this. The 3 months in boot camp at Paris Island or San Diego, they are trying to mold you into, in some terms you could use the word brainwash. They're trying to brainwash you into like, this is the way the Marine Corps operates. Condition. Yeah. I always like to say, because people like, well, brainwash. You're taking 17, 18, 19-year-old kids and turning them into Marines. And that is a very drastic cultural change. They got to be broken down and built back up. Mm-hmm. And so even as a recruit, before I was in boot camp, and then when I was in boot camp, I'm like, Marines are, this stature, they are this discipline, they are this blah, 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 blah. And then, as we all come to find out later on, like I'll still say this about the Marine Corps, like some of the best people I ever worked with, some of the most amazing human beings on earth. There's not a better group that I ever want to be in at the end of the world than Marine infantry. But there are the 1% of anybody in any job who don't embody that culture. And so that's what the DIs don't want their recruits to see, that like, oh, here's this guy over here smoking and walking and talking on his phone at the same time. Right. Because that does not embody what they've been trying to drill into these Marines or these recruits for 3 months. But the thing is that I'd been in the fleet at that point for a year. And I was with some corporals and some sergeants who'd been in for 4 years plus at that point. And they're getting yelled at in this chow hall. We're covered in salt, sand, and I mean, we hadn't slept in 2 days. We didn't care what we looked like, but that was the thing. Like, we didn't think anybody was going to stop us and yell at us. Yeah. This guy was yelling at us. He was mad. So that's the premise of all this, is that although the paperwork isn't there, you're not going to be punished for not shaving in the Marine Corps. The punishment will still certainly be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, somebody's not going to be with the program, and they're going to light you up. And you're like, oh, jeez.
Right.
But speaking of lighting things up, and we all know how much the news loves to light up the screen with hearsay and drama, and likes to get everybody's emotions running. One of the big things, I'd say from November to March, in some places, the local news will just hammer you with the weather and let you know how bad the next storm is going to be, and we're all going to not be able to get out of our homes for a week at a time, and we're all going to run out of bread, milk, and toilet paper. So everybody needs to go to the store right now and get all those things. Well, Matt, you found this article. This has nothing to do with the military, but the vernacular used in the title here is just, it's clickbait. It's a bomb cyclone. I've never heard of a bomb cyclone. I'm not a meteorologist, obviously. Bomb cyclone with the power of a hurricane will unleash a snow and blizzard-like conditions this weekend. If anybody out there has ever heard of a bomb cyclone before, please let me know, because I've never heard of it. Matt, before we went live, you were talking about this. The other one they use is polar vortex.
Polar. I like to say it like it's a movie trailer. It's a polar vortex.
Yeah,
but
in a world.
So here in Cincinnati, I woke up this morning with 6 degrees out. It's a polar vortex. Basically, what this is like air from the poles from the North Pole coming down into the northern states of the United States, and it's called a polar vortex. I don't know why it's a vortex. Nothing's swirling out there. There's no air movement right now. It's just very cold outside. And I realize that they're coming up with these names, but I think the relation to the military here is that I wonder if the same people that name the weather like bomb, cyclone, and polar vortex are the same group of people that are sitting around naming military operations like Steel Knight, Operation Gator Roll, Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I would like to be part of this committee that comes up with these names, these very dramatic names. I think the Army is the best at this. The Army calls things. I wish I would have thought of an example of this, but the names of things that they have. The Marine Corps has MCMAP, the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. The Army calls it combatives.
There you
Let's go do combatives.
Army combatives.
Right.
Okay. We're just going to do MCMAP.
So the reason I get so frustrated with the weather, by the way, is here in Cincinnati, we get this once a week during the wintertime. It is going to dump 100 feet of snow on us. The power is going to shut down. The National Guard needs to be deployed. The salt plow, we're going to run out of salt. We ran out of salt one year. I think it was 2014. The places were running out of salt. And then it ends up that it doesn't snow. It just rains.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we're like on this Ohio River Valley where if you ever look at the weather maps when there's a snowstorm rolling through on a national level, you'll see that the Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky area is literally, there must be a wall built where rain or snow goes to one or the other side of it.
It like splits.
It splits always right on that demarcation line. So the other day it was snowing heavily south of us in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So Kentucky was getting buried in snow and ice, and it was raining in Cincinnati, which is really weird. Usually you'd think the colder colder
north.
you are, the more north. No, in this case it was the exact opposite. So I like to go out when the media sells it for a week and tells us we're going to get buried in snow. I like when we get the light dusting to go out there and post pictures like we will rebuild, or it took me, an hour to brush off my car this morning after there's like 4 snowflakes on it, just to kind of drive it home that you're right, Tim. Everybody must be making French toast because it's bread, eggs, and milk. That's what gets sold out at the grocery stores. In Cincinnati, when they say that there's weather coming in, man, the grocery stores are full. Like you'll never be snowed in here. It simply does not happen. You don't get snowed in the city. We have the structure, the infrastructure, and the snow plows and the salt. Nobody ever gets stuck here, but people act like they're not coming out of hibernation for a week. And David, we do have Skyline Chili. Some of the Titans fans over this past weekend, I think, were criticizing Cincinnati for its Skyline Chili, saying that people were making fun of us. And I said, how dare you? If you've never had any Skyline, then
wait, the Titans fans were taking shots at Skyline?
I think it was the Titans fans. There's like in the football world.
Do better, Titans fans.
Right.
No.
Skyline Chili is a gold staple of Cincinnati.
Yes.
As is La Rosa's Pizza and Jeff Ruby's Steakhouses. Those are like the 3 favorite places if you're heading to this area.
See, I've never had Skyline Chili like fresh. I think I've had it out of a can once or twice, which I don't know if it's the same thing. So still darn good.
There are places, there are different Skyline Chili restaurants around the city, and some of them are franchised and some of them are corporate owned. The best one is in Milford, Ohio.
Okay. It's
just off the beaten path. It's privately owned by a guy named Keith, and it is the fastest restaurant in the world. If you go in there and you sit down, they've already, they're taking your order and they walk away, and no sooner than they walk away, your food's coming back.
Oh, wow.
And it is part of it is not that it's like an experiential thing, but going into the restaurant where it smells like the chili and you get all the stuff right there. They make it right there on the hot table and then they deliver it to your seat. It's amazing. Yes. And it's certainly a staple of the place. But Keith and his crew also remember what we order. So that's the other interesting thing. My son gets the same things all the time, and so he'll go in there and they already know exactly what my kiddo wants.
What he wants, yeah. They see him come through the door, they're making it.
They already know what's happening. So that's always really good when you get that sort of experience.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah. So anybody in the Northeast, bundle up, prepare, get your milk, eggs, and bread, get that French toast stuff ready, because here comes the Bomb Cyclone. Never heard of that one before.
Cyclone.
That one had me kind of laughing a little bit.
I feel like that needs to be like a Vin Diesel movie or something, or like a, it's The Rock, not Vin Diesel. The Rock, he's got the skyscraper one and he's got the San Andreas one. Perhaps they make one called
a weather event
Cyclone.
now. Yeah.
Right. And
the only man to handle the Bomb Cyclone.
And he has to be flying a helicopter, and Michael Bay will direct that movie.
There you go. Yeah. Michael Bay will direct that movie. Absolutely. Another fun piece of news. This one actually happened I'll in my state. I won't say locally. About 2 hours northwest of Philadelphia, a truck containing 100 lab monkeys had crashed. And I want to say it was 3 of them spent a night in the woods. At this time, all of the monkeys have been accounted for. Sadly, a few of them. You got to put Dave's comment up there, Matt. That last one's a great. There you go. It's called a vortex because it really sucks. He's not wrong, people. He is not wrong.
When I think of vortex, I think of like swirling air, and
Yes.
I'm like, it's not doing anything outside.
No, not at all.
But you're right, David.
Yes, he is 100% right. Yeah, this truck was bringing these monkeys to a CDC containment facility. They had just landed at Kennedy Airport the day before. Immediately, as soon as I heard about this crash and that there were CDC monkeys on the loose, I said, here we go.
Right.
COVID's out the door. Whatever these little things got.
What's next?
I will say that these are monkeys from an island off of India, over in the Indian Ocean. There is one lady that saw the crash, was attempting to help. She was carrying a monkey and said it hissed in her face, and she now has pink eye and is suffering from a fever.
Right. Pink eye.
So,
right.
I'm just saying, just watch out. I'm from PA, so maybe I'll have it before everybody else. Who knows? But yeah, the Pennsylvania Game Commission was out there searching all night through the frigid weather, trying to find these not so adorable little monkeys and capture them. Yeah, Arthur Ramirez outbreak is real. This could be a real life outbreak. Absolutely.
That was that movie from like the 90s with what's his name?
Dennis or
the guy from Rain Man.
Yeah, I can't. I was going to say Rain Man, but
yeah.
I can't think of the actor's name.
It'll come to us after we stop talking about him. But yeah, the monkey gets loose, and then it bites somebody, and then it spreads the outbreak, and then they have to find
I will
cure.
say that when April time frame of 2020, if you were a Netflix subscriber, you saw that Outbreak had become like one of the top 10 movies on Netflix because everybody's like, this is what's going to happen. I need to know what's going to happen.
Right.
And then that's when you started seeing people take like 5-gallon water jugs and cutting holes in the bottom and just wearing them like divers helmets.
Outbreak. And then there's the other one with Jude Law. And I can't remember the name of that movie.
That also made the top 10 on Netflix as well. Again,
the same
also forget the name of the movie, but yeah, it's talking about, disease control and pandemics and things of that nature. So,
So, here's the thing about this. These monkeys were just on a truck and they crashed it and they got loose. Like, this isn't the only truck full of CDC monkeys or infected animals, for example.
We only heard about it because it crashed.
Exactly. And so this is the other thing here is that like nuclear missiles are transported by trains and stuff like that. Like they have to get from point A to point B. There was some criticism a number of years ago where a stealth bomber flew a nuclear missile over the United States to transport it from one place to the next, and people found out about it and got really mad because, granted, a nuke doesn't just
go off.
They're like, what if that plane crashed? Well, it doesn't detonate like that, or I guess it's really hard for it to detonate. I guess nothing is impossible, but this kind of stuff happens more than you probably think it does. We can all talk about the trains we've seen or the trucks that we've seen driving down the highway with tanks on the back and stuff like that. And that stuff's harmless. But at one point in time when I was in the Marines, we were going from Camp Pendleton to 29 Palms, and we had contracted just a semi truck to take all of our weapons to 29 Palms. And I was the lone gear guard on that truck. And I was armed with a loaded 9mm pistol, and that's it. I had one magazine. I probably could have shot 15 people if I needed to, or 15 rounds. But this was a truck full of like Javelin missile clues and 240 Golf machine guns and saw machine guns and all kinds of other equipment, probably millions of dollars worth of weapons. And I was one dude
with a
guarding this truck. Yeah. And at one point I had to stop. We stopped somewhere in the desert on the side of the highway at this rest stop because I really had to go to the bathroom, and the truck driver had to go to the bathroom too. He was a civilian, by the way. And just so happens that there was an LAV company stopped there as well with all their vehicles. And I walked up to their captain and I was like, sir, I'm the gear guard for this truck. I have weapons on the truck. Can your Marines cover my truck for me? I don't know if there was a protocol for that. This was a truck full of, again, millions of dollars in equipment and probably some pretty sensitive stuff. And I couldn't go to the bathroom on the side of the road. I would have gotten in trouble. So it was a pretty interesting dichotomy. This is stuff happening that you don't know it's happening, but these guys are out there. And it was Dustin Hoffman.
That's it.
In Outbreak, Rain Man.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I was picturing him in my head. I'm like, it's Rain Man. It's that guy, the Rain Man guy,
not Tom Cruise, the other guy.
Yeah, the actual Rain Man guy.
Rain Man was partially filmed in Cincinnati, by the way.
Oh,
so
there you go.
Everything ties back to Cincinnati somehow.
It does. It everything flows Cincinnati, these days. So yeah. But Matt, that's about all I got this week. You got anything else?
The Bengals face the Chiefs this weekend in Kansas City, and I think Kansas City is known as one of those very loud stadiums. I think we're ready for it. We were talking about this before we went live, but Joe Burrow's the real deal. Evan McPherson's the real deal. If we can get that O-line to work a little bit better so we're not doing 9 sacks on our quarterback, it's going to be
You got a heck of a receiver trio there. The running back's great. Tight end's good. Defense is pretty stout. I think that could be a lot of fun. I think that game could be a back and forth slobber knocker, if you will. Just one team scoring, the other team going down and scoring.
So I don't know what happens after that. A long time ago when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl the last time, 31 years ago, 1988, I think. It was longer than
Joe Montana.
And the San Francisco 49ers. That we might end up here again
against Joe Montana.
So I don't know.
Not against Joe Montana, but against the Niners.
Not Joe Montana, but and Boomer Esiason is still around. Boomer Esiason was the quarterback for the Bengals back then. He's still commentating. So it's kind of interesting to. I don't know. It's I was just a little kid when that happened back then. It's interesting because my son is now watching this around the same age. He's watching this happen around the same age that I was when this went down the first time. So
that Super Bowl was my first football memory. Watching, I remember I called them the Tiger guys and the Gold guys.
Right. Yeah. Tiger guys and the Gold guys.
Because you had orange helmets with black stripes, and then you had guys in gold and red. And I was like, the Gold guys and the Tiger guys are playing.
Yep. I will say this as we close this out, Tim. We're going to have we are slated to have a really special guest on the show next week, same time next week on Wednesday. If you are watching this, make sure you either go to Facebook or YouTube and subscribe to the channel just so you get updates when we start next time. You probably won't want to miss the conversation next week, but that's where I'll close it, Tim. If you want to take us out.
Yeah. That's going to do it for us. Actually, as soon as we get this done and I get everything edited and pushed out, driving to Philly, taking my daughter to see a daggone it. I'm blanking on the name now. A concert, some country pop star lady.
Must be important.
Yeah, I don't. It's not for me. It's for her. She's super psyched about it though. But yeah, it's a big deal for her. It was one of those birthday presents. She was all excited and we surprised her and she cried. And it was one of the good tears though. So look forward to her. Hopefully, I can get there early enough. Maybe get myself a little Philadelphia cheesesteak sandwich in my gut, and hate myself the rest of the evening for eating greasy, fatty foods. But
there you go.
But with all that being said, like Matt said, go over to YouTube, Facebook, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're signed up to get the alerts, because next week it's gonna be a good episode. It's gonna be a good conversation, that's for sure. Look forward to that. Check us out on all the social media platforms as well as the podcast platforms. You can rate, subscribe, tell a friend, tell a family member. And until next week, check